UFC illegally holding John and Jones versus Daniel Cormier rematch number 2 in New York. This is the breaking news coming across our desk. Enter the arena uncut. The Don Juan Banks, the best MMA analyst and YouTube today. Tommy Razorstein. This comes from Of Rocks. The Ultimate Fighting Championship has long had its sights set on mixed martial arts legalization in New York State, the only state left with a ban on the sports on its books. But due to a couple of angry unions and an obstinate former assembly speaker in Sheldon Silver, MMA law reform has failed to pass through all the political hurdles necessary for the past 5 years. Yep, the UFC has been pleading its case and lobbying hard for 5 years now, but every year legislation to legalize MMA failed to vote on the assembly floor before lawmakers left for the year, resetting the entire process. The UFC has launched numerous lawsuits on a state and federal level, with the latest coming just this past September. But now it seems like they're sick of waiting and are going to force a shutdown with New York lawmakers and the courts via the New York Post. The UFC is going through with plans to hold its first event at Madison Square Garden, MSG, on April the 23rd, with the main event featuring former light heavyweight champion John Bones Jones trying to get his belt back from current champion Daniel Cormier. We're hopeful this year might be the year for Tito said. I don't know with what we've said that many times. I know we've said that many times, but we're hopeful the bill will not only be introduced for a vote this year, but it will happen early in the session. If professional MMA is not legalized by the assembly in time to begin promoting the April event, the UFC will seek a preliminary injunction against New York from enforcing its unconstitutional law. Hopefully, there will be a decision on it by the middle of January. John Jones is from New York, and his return to the UFC after being stripped of the title is likely to be the biggest fight for the UFC coming in 2016. His original fight with Daniel Cormier caught the attention of fans after two engaged in a very public brawl during a promotional appearance, and footage of Jones taunting Cormier afterwards leaked to the public. Jones defeated Cormier, but Cormier made it harder on the champ than most challengers. Then John drove through a red light into a pregnant woman's car after a late night partying session and fled the scene. The UFC took his belt away while he dealt with numerous charges in court, eventually ending up with a parole and community service. In the meantime, Cormier won the vacant light heavyweight strap, setting up a huge rematch. Will it go down in New York City, or will the UFC have to move the event back to their home base in Las Vegas after another crushing legal defeat in the state? It's a battle every bit as interesting as the title fight. The event will be featured, and the next steps are set to go down over January as the assembly schedules bills and the UFC prepares a potential injunction. The title of this article: the UFC plans to hold the John Jones fight in New York, even if it is illegal. Tommy Razorstein.
Illegal. That's wild, dude.
Have you ever heard anything like this?
No, I never heard anything like that before. I mean, when you hear illegal, you think, oh, John Jones. You know, so it's so appropriate. It's like, John Jones illegal. They should really run with this. They can really market that.
There might be
That
illegal
would be a
UFC. Imagine, UFC 194, UFC 195, UFC illegal. John Jones versus Daniel
illegal
Cormier.
underground fight. That would be wild. That would be so cool. But you know what the problem is? If they did it illegal, then you could take steroids and all sorts of shit. how could you really, how could you sanction an illegal fight? How could you really say, oh, well, this is against the rules and this is against the rules when it's a legal fight to begin with? So it would be pretty cool, though.
Razor's time, because if you say illegal, then it means, well, then we go back to the original UFCs. You do whatever you want to win, and a lot of fighters do still view MMA and cage fighting, the octagon, that way. And you see it a little bit in Vitor Belfort and some other people. But back to the subject at hand, you have a great point about that. That's something you really don't want to be tied to the event.
Yeah. I think they should really just work hard, get the lawyers, press those assholes, and keep pounding it down their throat and trying to legalize that shit.
You just called them assholes.
Yes, I did, because they're stopping the UFC. It's ridiculous. 49 states are in favor of it. It's 2015. You know what I mean? Gays got married. We should have our turn now. The UFC fans, the MMA fans.
Okay.
Legalize it. Legalize it. It's the last state
no
remaining.
Discrimination. That's what you're basically saying. Treat everyone equal.
Yep. It's about equality, Don. This is about equality, and I think we should make a stand.
Well, first and foremost, I'm making my stand right now. I believe 100% UFC should be legalized in New York. I don't understand why. There's a couple of angry people who view it as human cockfighting, but tell us how this captures people's attention with the word illegal in John Bones Jones.
Well, John Bones Jones has done a bunch of illegal shit. You know what I mean? He has crashed his car recently into a pregnant woman and fled the scene and left, all drug paraphernalia in his car. Some people even said that there was cocaine there. I'm not sure whether or not, but he has failed a drug test previously because he was on cocaine, which is absolutely ridiculous. Cocaine's only in your system for a couple days, so you have to constantly do it. So he's just saying it, miraculously just happened to, fail the test, because I just did it that one time. When he really is a cokehead, he should just admit it. But anyway, there's another example. Him failing a drug test. Him, crashing his car into a pregnant woman, and the pregnant woman broke her arm. Just imagine the stress that it put on her. You're thinking about your child because of the accident, the impact, and everything. Oh my God, how do you sleep at night? And John Jones is like, he doesn't even factor that in. He just doesn't even think about things like that. He's not concerned about things like that. I would think that John Jones hasn't even thought about that woman that he hurt. I think he should come back, and a portion of the money should go to the recovery of her. You know what I mean? I think that would be fair. And I think that's one way it could be legalized. Say, okay, we're going to do donations for this woman, and we're going to legalize it in New York, and we're going to legalize marijuana too. That'd be awesome. That would be awesome.
That would, because John Jones in his last interview with Ariel Helwani was basically saying that the coke thing was a one-time mistake and that he's normal like everyone else. He just drinks and he does weed. But me and you factored in the fact that John Jones, this wasn't his first time at the rodeo. He did cocaine before. We know he can't come out and say that because of his reputation and sponsors and things like that. But it's very difficult on him to admit to the other two drugs, but not admit to the cocaine.
Yeah, it's like he's taking a plea bargain. He's like, yeah, I'm admitting to this, but I'm not admitting to that. I'll take the pot. I'll take, me being drunk because that's all kind of normal. People drink. He doesn't like the DUI and, crash his car because that looks terrible. Injure somebody. That looks terrible too. But the drinking and smoking pot, it's like, yeah, people do that all the time. Cocaine, I don't want to take that one. But come on. You got caught with coke in your system because you did it once and you so happen to have to take a drug test the next day and it just showed up at your house. Come on, that's ridiculous. Coke's only in your system for like 72 hours. It's in and it's out. So you got to be constantly doing it to get caught doing coke. Marijuana is different, I mean, if you're a heavy male and smoke a lot of marijuana, that and you consistently smoke every day, and you smoke a lot, and you have a big a lot of fat on you. The THC is going to go into the fat cells and absorb into the fat cells, and it's going to take a month to get rid of it. So it can take up a month to get rid of marijuana. Coke is in and out. It's fast.
So basically,
John has, has lied in court before. He still has to attend for that.
Yeah, he has to do a lot of community service. Look, John Jones, his last interview with Ariel Helwani, I thought that was the realest John Jones that we've ever seen. I've basically been trying to support the young guy, support the kid, but there's still a lot that meets the eye with John Jones. How did you feel about the last interview with Ariel Helwani, where he seemed to be forthcoming?
Don,
what?
In the beginning, it was like all horse shit that we heard before. It was, a constant John Jones bullshit that you've heard a million times before, that he's like read off a script, that people have told him to say this. His PR manager said, say this, say that, say this. When they ask these questions, say this. And it was bullshit. But Ariel Helwani, dude, he did a great job. I got to give him credit for this. He took Jones into deep waters. He went the later rounds. And at the end, Jones ran out of things to say. And he was just like being real at the end. He was like, shit, Ariel Helwani has asked me too many questions that I don't have answers for. And like he started like showing his like real self. And I liked that. I actually appreciated that. He said, I didn't know how to act in front of the cameras. I thought I had to act a certain way. I thought I had to be a certain person. I didn't know. I'd never been in an experience like this. And he starts showing his true self a little bit. And a part of it was scary. It's like, oh, God, this guy looks fucking crazy. But also, it's like, you know what? He's a normal person, too.
John Jones is a normal human being. Nobody's perfect, but he's done a lot of bad things. But nobody's perfect. And I saw at the end of the interview he's more forthcoming, and I respect that a lot about John Jones. And I'm supporting John Jones. I hope he keeps his life clean. Keep doing the bodybuilding. I don't believe he's on performance enhancement drugs. And we will see how things go for this young guy. I hope he never has a relapse, or because if he has a relapse with cocaine, then that will basically prove what we say is right. Now, me and you had spoke things about John Jones for around several years, and it felt great to be vindicated when he had another incident. Now, this wasn't an incident that we were wishing that took place, but it was an incident that we were predicting that would take place, and that is why we have the validity, the credibility, the legitimacy here at Enter the Arena and Tommy Razorstein. What didn't it feel great to get to basically be vindicated, and everything that we said about John Jones literally came to light?
Oh my God, it was like a huge weight off my shoulders. I had people hating me, calling me a racist, calling both of us racist. All sorts of crazy shit. And I'm like, all I'm saying is real things that John Jones is doing. I like Daniel Cormier. I like other, fighters. And it's like, oh, well, you're just saying you like Daniel Cormier. I'm like, no, and it was all sorts of crazy nonsense that I was getting from fans. And I'm like, I'm just saying the facts. And every single time there's, red flags going off. It's absolutely ridiculous, man. And we have to acknowledge it. And, people like Lance were like, no, I'm not acknowledging it. Eventually, Lance gave in and was like, okay, I see your point.
People gave in.
It was like, yes! yes, yeah, bitch.
Wow.
Like in Breaking Bad, when Jesse was like, "Yeah, bitch, magnets." You know, he was so happy in that one episode. That's how I felt.
But Tommy
Oh,
Razorstein, the Don Juan Banks UFC illegally. John Jones versus Daniel Cormier rematch potentially. Peace.
peace.